Hey everybody, Onepeg here from the vacation house, chilling in my bedroom because it's the best place that I could find that was even remotely quiet, and I'm recording this from my cell phone. So if the video and audio are borked, I apologize. Also, yeah, I went outside and got a lot of sun and got my nose sunburnt. I guess I didn't use enough sunscreen here, but I did everywhere else, so go figure. Anyway, today there was a podcast, and before the podcast there was a whole bunch of patch notes. The most, I guess, notable of all of the patch notes was they fixed the dolphin dive, the animation bug where people were able to jump and go prone at the same time, making you kind of like do barrel rolls through the air, looking like you were rolling almost through the air and on the ground. That stuff got fixed. Good times. Also, there was a patch note in there about people being able to stand up in places that they shouldn't have been able to stand up. There was a bug associated with that after they released the patch that meant when you were inside of like connexes and small trailers, or if you were standing in doorways and you crouched, you weren't able to stand all the way back up again. Some type of collision issue, not really sure what was going on there, but they ended up putting out a hotfix, and I guess that has been since fixed. So again, good stuff. Also, in case you hadn't noticed, there's a whole bunch of stuff that got banned from the flea market. The M1A, the RD704, a thick weapons case, and the Scav junk box in the SR25 all got banned from the flea, along with all of the BT545 rounds and boxes. You can no longer list any of those on the flea market at all. Even though they ended up modifying the dolphin dive, the stuff with bunny hopping is still in the game. So the bunny hopping in rapid succession, the ability to change direction from a sprinting hop to a different direction if you want to, or the ability to like strafe and check a corner and jump back, all of those things are still in the game. So no word as to whether or not that's intended or not. I'm going to assume that it's not intended, but they haven't done anything with it yet. But anyway, on to the podcast. The podcast opened today with a guy in a balaclava that looked like, I don't know, maybe he was somehow mentally damaged in some way. Nikita came in, threw him off to the side, and said he was like the new Demerka. And he sat there kind of like poking away at keys on a keyboard and like moving the mouse around kind of stupidly or whatever. I think that this might have been something like BSG is playing into the whole like the guys that are at BSG are a bunch of idiots, or possibly Demerka is bad at Tarkov. Moments after that, Demerka ended up coming in, threw the other guy out, and started playing Tarkov, and Nikita said if he died to AI, he'd have to do 20 push-ups. Apparently, Demerka didn't want to do that because he suddenly started getting kills, so whatever. Nikita said that they basically didn't have much to show, but for what he had, he was going to show us what they had anyway and give us some ideas on progress. So that's basically where we're at. From here, he teased a promo code for Tarkov on the site. He didn't actually show a promo code, he just teased that he was going to show us one. And then the site instantly went down after he said that they had done a bunch of work trying to make the site more stable. So that didn't work. I guess for the most part, during the podcast, the site itself didn't actually go down, but the ability to get your verification email with the alphanumeric code so that you could actually get into the account to claim the code, none of those emails were sending. They didn't send for the entire duration of the podcast. The one that I tried to send myself, and while I'm here on vacation, it ended up actually arriving after I was done with the podcast, like an hour afterward. So I don't know what's going on there. For the people that couldn't get logged in, apparently all of the codes no longer work. There were 5 of them, but we'll talk more about that in a minute. Nikita said there are plans for one more like really major patch this year. I'm going to assume that that means the end of the calendar year, because something like Streets being added to the game sounds like a major patch, right? Which also kind of kills the idea or the narrative that he had been pushing, saying that he wanted the first iteration of Streets to be out by the end of summer or during the beginning of fall. I don't think that that's possible. I don't think that they can pull that timeline off, especially not with the repeated number of setbacks that they've had. And anytime, again, that you ever hear Nikita say something like, I hope to, it's always never going to make that deadline. Ever. It's just the way that he's always been. Again, I'm just going to say this. I don't expect there to be a patch until somewhere around the second week of December. Somewhere in that area, we will finally see the final patch for Tarkov. That should push Tarkov to 0.13, which means that Streets would be in it, and then we would eventually, I guess, see a 1.0 release of Tarkov somewhere thereafter. If it were me, and even though Nikita is saying that he wants to see this by the end of this calendar year for a 1.0 release, I think that the iteration of Streets being added to the game is going to end up setting them back due to bug fixes and whatnot, network code issues that they're going to have to suss out before they'll be able to actually push this off to a 1.0. So I'm going to say it's about a year from now, somewhere around June of 2023, will probably be a realistic release point of like a Tarkov 1.0. That's my guess. Anyway, for the big patch that they're supposed to be doing at the end of this year, it's going to include Streets. Again, it will be patch point 13. It will still be really big. It will not be Streets in its entirety. It's going to be the first iteration of Streets, but it's still going to be massive. They're trying to work on making the netcode and whatnot playable because, again, the target is supposedly 30 to 40 PMCs plus AI and scavs and all that other stuff on top of the 30 to 40 PMCs because of the size of the map. Right now, we see maps that are designed for somewhere around like 12 to 16 people on the large scale. So something that is going to double that means a very, very large map. He then said that the first iteration, the target goal of when this first portion of Streets releases, is somewhere around 20 to 30, with 30 to 40 being the target for network optimizations as they go on. Obviously, that's going to require some really massive optimization work. From here, he said that he had some screen caps to show us, and they're just going to cycle through. The first screen was an apartment building with the corner of it just missing, like blown clean off, like it got hit with an RPG or some large, I guess, tank fire something. Blew the corner of the building off, looked really awesome. There were several shots that showed a movie theater from different angles that looked really cool. Then Nikita elaborated that the movie theater was going to actually be explorable, which is cool. One screen showed a trolley in the background, so there's like a full trolley system. There was also a subway and some underground tunnels, and it even showed a crashed train or subway train. And then there were several screen caps that showed warehouses, alleyways. Basically, everything that they were showing us didn't appear that it was in any of the earlier teasers, with like the large apartment complex and that firefight that they had and the BTR showing up. This appears to be a completely separate area of this Streets map that they're going to be releasing to us at some point by the end of the calendar year. So new things to explore and pore over, and as soon as I'm back home, I'll probably end up going back over all this stuff. The second major thing that he talked about was Lightkeeper functionality as being a major point of interest for them. So the primary thing that they're working on is Streets. The, I guess, 1A that they're working on is Lightkeeper. All of the roles and his attitudes and his functions, of which he's not sharing anything about how this trader is going to fit into the main story arc, which apparently he's going to be a part of, and what's going to be traded with him, how you're going to be able to talk to him, rep systems. None of that is being discussed. It's all stuff that he wants us to experience ourselves firsthand, which kind of was a common theme throughout the remainder of the podcast. Also, his personal bodyguard, which got mentioned, so he's also going to be in there. A major point that he made was that there's going to be a complete audio rework. Steam audio is being removed, taken out of the game entirely. Apparently, the way that they have their audio engine set up and its interaction with Steam audio is not something that they feel comfortable with dealing with anymore, and they're going to remove Steam audio. The way that he spoke made it sound like they're going to do something else. They're going to move in a different direction, and they're going to redevelop, or I guess further develop, their own audio engine, or maybe they'll just source out a different one. I don't know. Here's the thing, though, and I want to be very clear about this. Steam audio is not the culprit that everyone wants to paint it to be. See, there seems to be a vein of people inside of Tarkov that will go out of their way to talk about how the audio issues that they're experiencing are somehow related to binaural or Steam audio. That is not the case. CryEngine, okay, Hunt Showdown, Crytek, uses Steam audio in a Hunt Showdown. It works fantastically well. In fact, it is touted as being one of the best and most robust audio engines, most accurate. People just pine over how amazing it is. It's the same audio engine. It's just being tacked on to something going on with Unity that Unity apparently and BSG apparently does not like. That doesn't mean that Steam audio is wrong or bad or that it's causing the bugs. The bugs are from the audio engine that BSG had built before they tried tacking on these Steam audio modules. So Steam audio is just enhancing audio bugs that already exist in the game. And for them to fix this, they're really going to have to go back and rebuild it in a way that isn't going to cause all these other issues. I just want to make that very clear because people want to paint Steam Audio as the reason why none of this stuff works, and that's just not the case. Okay, then on to body armor hitboxes. He said that body armor hitboxes are coming, but it's not going to be anything in the near future. They're going to try to get it in by the end of the year. Again, remember what I said about him saying, I hope or I try. Anytime they say that they're going to try to get something in by a certain date, not going to happen. Do not expect to see armor hitboxes within the calendar year. I'm telling you, it's not likely going to occur. He also then said there's going to be some animation work done with movement on inclines and hills. So people that are kind of running laterally on an incline, the way that the feet get animated and the way that the legs get positioned is going to get adjusted so that it's more realistic. He also said something about full storyline and main quests being added, but they're not, again, going to be added until the full release. There's no beta testing of the actual storyline. Nikita wants the storyline to be something that people experience, and having that main portion of the lore be something that people experience as they play through the storyline. He doesn't want any teasers. Belt-fed machine guns being added. He then said that the hideout is going to be upgraded in the next major patch with new areas. So one of these major areas is a gym. In the way that he said it was with exercises to be able to level up your strength. So that way, people that are more casual in nature can still keep up with the guys that are grinding and doing this 12 hours, 16 hours a day every day, right? He also said that prior to actually getting into the game lobby, there's going to be a ability to group up with people, like group up with your friends before you actually get into the lobby to go into a match. Like all of the other things that get done with Fortnite splash screen stuff, like every other shooting game has the ability to assemble teams in advance and then everybody queues at once, right? So that's going to be a thing that we'll all be able to do. Everybody's going to group up, and then everybody clicks ready, and then launch from the party leader. He also said that there's going to be new weapons, some of which he showed us, and a new volumetric fog system. Now, the new volumetric fog is something that we desperately need, because if it's one thing that we have all been able to agree on is that fog at distance is like a whiteout. It's not realistic, it doesn't look right, it doesn't work well. They need to adjust that. So if they can modify and update and make the volumetric fog system a lot better, that would be a very, very good addition and very necessary one. Moving on from here, we had a teaser for the Steyr AUG, but the audio wasn't right. And Nikita said it's still a work in progress. It's not ready yet. They're still working on trying to make sure that the audio of firing the AUG actually sounds like an AUG. It looks good, but the animation, in my opinion, looked pretty jumpy. Also, it obviously doesn't have a lot of modifiers. There aren't a lot of big attachments and stuff that you can slap on an AUG, which means that for me, something like this, a 5.56 AUG, is going to be a relatively early game item. I would say like level 1 or like level 2 traders. Maybe something that we see on Skier at level 1 for a barter and level 2 for cash. That seems like it would make the most sense. And then we moved on to repair buffs. This one I thought was actually really, really cool. Basically, the deal is for each one of the weapon repair kits, based on your skill level, you would be able to augment a piece of armor or a weapon, had a chance to give you a better or worse augmentation of it. Not stuff that's game-breaking, but things like a percentage of damage reduction applied to armor based on your skill level, and there were things noted like common or rare buffs, you know, RPG kind of stuff that Nikita wants to give that little flavor to. Also, for like weapons, it wasn't like a damage increase. Maybe there is, or maybe like an accuracy increase would be cool. But the one that he showed was like malfunction reduction. So a chance for your gun to malfunction was reduced by X amount of percent, you know, common, rare, with obviously the rare ones being higher, bigger, stronger buffs. Now, I know that the purists aren't going to like that, but I think that those little RNG kind of things might give it a little bit more depth. You know, I think it's kind of cool. Not everything has to be completely perfect. It doesn't have to be real, you know? From there, he talked about Arena. He said that there's going to be 4 arenas on release. If you had been paying attention to the BSG Twitter not too long ago, they teased 4 like images for stuff work in progress. One of them was a computer monitor showing a football arena, like soccer. I'm going to assume it's Europe, you know, they don't have American football, but it was like a stadium. And that was being turned into, or had been turned into, an arena for Tarkov arena fighting. He said that there's the 2 that we saw from the teaser video, the 1 arena that we saw, the stadium one, and there's going to be 1 more that he did not allude to. So we should see 4 arenas upon release, possibly 1 more. And he said that that's going to also include the ability for people in person to watch a match or matches as spectators, and that inside of the game there's also going to be in arena mode more interactive, like camera spectator kind of stuff. The cameras, like head cams that you'll be able to wear in arena mode, will also be lootable cameras in the actual Tarkov world. So we'll be able to pick up those cameras, put on a helmet cam, record things as they happen, and then share those videos with buddies if we wanted to. So possibly this could also lead into like a kill cam feature. Possibly. Would be cool, because that also means that that's going to be somehow housed inside of Tarkov proper. And that's a really good, really important thing. From here, he also then went on to talk about unconscious states. So what he talked about for unconscious states, for those of you that don't know, it's always been part of the dev plan to allow people to have an unconscious state. So instead of dying outright, maybe you have a bunch of blood loss and you pass out, just like you do in games like DayZ, for instance. He said it's near, but it's not close to being done. Again, he said, I hope to have something by the end of this year, which means it's not going to be this year. But things like body dragging, looting unconscious players, etc., he basically said once they're unconscious, you can do whatever you want with them, which obviously means those things. This also, though, would require the need for people to administer third-party medications. So things like using a defibrillator, or being able to punch morphine into your buddy, or giving them other kinds of painkillers, or stopping a bleed. All of those things would be things that need to be evaluated, animations done, yada, yada, yada functionality, so that people can administer medications to another person, which obviously we don't have in the game yet, and sounds like it's probably going to be a bit more of a job than what people really want it to be. But he also did talk about one other cool thing with this, and that's like extra physics. So something like firing a shotgun into somebody's leg would cause them to fall over. So somebody that gets hit in the thigh, it could cause their body to temporarily collapse, and they have to pick themselves back up. That would actually be pretty sweet. He then showed us a teaser of new Glock animations. So things like the thumb movement on the fire selector, reload animations that looked really nice and smooth. Just kind of making the handling of the Glock pistol look like they were actually handling it. I don't know if this was something that actually needed to get done, and I'm sure that there's other people in the audience that are watching this that would agree with me. However, what I will say is that you have to remember that there's an awful lot of people that want bug fixes and mechanic fixes and all that other stuff, and I completely agree, but artists and animators don't work on bug fixes unless those bugs are in the animations. So when it comes to this stuff, they're different teams that work on different things, right? You don't want your plumber necessarily trying to frame a house if they just work with pipes. You see what I'm saying? Then there was kind of like rapid fire questions coming from the audience. He said that the M16 is planned. There's a bunch of other, like the G3A3 is planned. There's a whole bunch of other guns that are planned. But he did then show a video of the SR3M, which is basically like the 9x21 version of the MP7. And this thing looks like it's going to hurt people. Again, the audio for it wasn't done, but it's chambered in the same rounds as the SR1MP, or the Shrimp. But this one has a pretty high rate of fire, and you also have to consider that as small arms rounds, pistol rounds, quote-unquote, go, 9x21 in Tarkov is devastating. The 9x21 SP13, well, what used to be the SP13 and is now the BT round, is 39 pen and 63 damage. And this gun fires at, what, like 800 rounds per minute? Something like that. I didn't look it up, so don't crucify me, okay? But if this gun shoots as flat as what they showed in the teaser video with minimal attachments, this gun is going to end up being the next meta gun by far in terms of SMGs. It will dunk on everything else. Everything else. Then there was talk of customizable rigs. Not body armor hitboxes, but the actual customizable rig station. Remember, if you guys had been around a year and a half, 2 years ago, there was a short video that showed what it would look like to assemble your own rig on a table, right? They were going to add this rig building table, and there was going to be removable plates, and they had renderings of like AR500 plate that had been brand new and then scuffed and then really beat, and then you'd be able to repair it, and there was all this talk about like when this was coming. That isn't coming. it's been frozen. They're not going to pursue it, at least for a long while. Nikita's reasoning was they had more important things to complete between now and 1.0. So the customizable rigs thing is going to be slated for a DLC way down the line somewhere. Don't expect to see that anytime soon. From here, Nikita ended the podcast by saying that he wanted everybody to know that he appreciated all of the people that play their game, that he genuinely appreciates and adores and loves the Tarkov community, and he's glad that everyone is here. And while I personally will say that I have been critical of the way that they have handled things in the past, I have to agree. I genuinely believe that the dev team gives a crap. I think that they're working their asses off. I think that they genuinely care about us as gamers, and I think that they're trying. Last but certainly not least, there were 5 codes, again, that don't work now. But there were 5 codes, and Nikita said that they teased something. The first one was Terror Group 6203. The second, Room with Secrets. The third, Eclipse. The fourth, Stand the Ground. And the fifth, Blue Fire Burns. Now, tinfoil hat time. The last one, Blue Fire Burns, is a specific reference, if it were me, to the first book and the cult. The cult is responsible for touching off an EMP over Tarkov. That's what knocked out all of the power, anything with a solid state solenoid, all of that stuff went out, right? So that's why cars don't work, that's why the BTRs don't run, etc., etc., etc. Now, I understand that there is shielding for certain military vehicles and all that stuff, but just work with me here, okay? The idea behind this piece is that in the first book, the cult always talked about how they wanted to do it a second time. They talk about the blue flame that they touched off over Tarkov and how they want to do it again. So, Nikita said that there's a major event coming. You have to stand your ground, and you have to remember the poem from the prior events and stuff with the extortion event and all that other garbage. Before they did the arena teaser, remember? There was stuff that Nikita still wanted to show us that wasn't ready yet. So this is probably just an extension of that. This idea of Eclipse and standing your ground and all this other jazz probably has something to do with the lights going out, another EMP going off, and it's very possible that what we could end up seeing is the generators and the lighting for like labs, for instance, and all of these other maps that are pretty well lit in certain places, even at night, may end up going bye-bye for a while. Because this EMP, I believe, is still a thing, could get touched off, and would knock the power out. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for coming and checking out the video. I apologize if the audio quality for this cell phone is not everything that it's supposed to be. I'm doing the best I can with what I got. I'm going to go back to the beach, and I will see you guys live on Twitch probably on Sunday. So a couple more days, and you will see me. Okay? We'll see you soon. Peace.